The Golden Bachelorette. Who will Joan Vassos find? Will Joan Vassos find love? We're going to explore this tonight and all of the realm of dating, mating, relating when you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, and even 70s. So let's dive into this conversation today. If you're not familiar with the Golden Bachelorette, the Golden Bachelor is the addition to the Golden Bachelor, meaning last year's Golden Bachelor, Gary, Jerry, whatever the heck his name was. And Joan was one of the contestants or bachelorettes on the show. And she eventually now has become the first Golden Bachelorette. And I think she's a fantastic pick for ABC. I mean, for the network, for the ratings, all that stuff. A, she's certainly very stunning and beautiful. B, she's got a vivacious and lovely personality. C, she seems very bright, intelligent. D, she's a very caring person. You can tell just by how she shares her feelings regarding her family. And certainly, given that she is a widow. She's widowed. Excuse me, I get that mixed up. Sadly, she lost her husband a few years ago. And this certainly brings a twist to midlife dating that we begin to start to notice for those of us that are in our 60s and even 70s. And what I mean to say is, certainly at this stage in our lives, we oftentimes have to face one of the daunting challenges of the days in front of us are shorter than the days behind us. So will Joan find love with this group of bachelors? And if you watch the first episode last week, there was 24 of them, I believe, and then there were some cut, and now the second week today. And what I'm sharing today is my perceptions, but also my predictions are who are going to be the top 4 contestants leading into, I call them contestants, excuse me, they are bachelors, leading into whom she'll finally pick a few weeks from now. Now, one of the challenges I have with this show is that it's very much a Cinderella story, If the Golden Bachelor was Prince Charming, for lack of a better word, certainly Joan is Cinderella, not in the traditional sense that she's has stepmother and that sort of thing, but the fact that this is a very romantic type of curated environment where there is a heavy emphasis on romance. Now, one of the challenges I have when we hyper focus on romance in the dating, mating, and relating realm, this oftentimes clouds us to the real important factors within a relationship is do we share the same values with one another? Do we share the same life vision? Are our lifestyles blendable with one another? And most importantly, is this person emotionally mature enough to be in a relationship with? Well, one of the challenges when you hyper focus on romance and chemistry, it can blind you to the things because you're not going to glean enough information in these curated environments to really get to know a person in the awkward stages of life, the uncomfortable stages of life. And certainly this is put together with a little bit of drama, so there might be some dramatic effect. I don't believe we actually get to see them in environments. So this is kind of strike one in the challenge of finding love in this type of format. Now, what's interesting, in the second episode, they had a group date where a group of them went to prom together with Joan. And there was a man crowned the prom king. I think it was Jonathan. I think he was crowned prom king because he didn't get to go to his prom. And certainly, I don't think Joan felt sorry for him, but she felt a connection when he shared something very personal and intimate. And we're going to talk about that in a moment as well. Another part of this prom date was the Asian gentleman, Charles, who shared something very personal, very intimate, that he also lost his wife. And it seems that there are several widowers in this group. And what's so special about this conversation is that you feel emotional for these men. You get to see them behind the curtain. You get to see them at an emotional level because they are actually talking about things that have affected them on an emotional level that oftentimes in our current dating environment, we don't get to see behind the curtain true vulnerability, true authenticity, and true transparency. Now, again, this is a curated environment, so we're getting it in little bits and pieces and little sound bites. But certainly we can have empathy for many of these men, particularly the widowers, but those are the ones that even talk about their children. Many of them talk about their daughters and how they've been supportive of them. And certainly this gives us some insight into the possibility that these gentlemen genuinely have a good heart, that are they good people? Now, one of the things I don't like about this environment is dating multiple people at the same time. Now, not that she's actively dating them, but certainly there seems to be a bit of kissing. You get to see a peek into the next weeks, and there seems to be multiple kissing going on. Not that I think Joan is the type of woman that does that, but I would say that for the drama, for the ratings, for the excitement, we are seeing this. But I don't appreciate this to some degree, because I certainly, ladies, if you were out dating, if you're in the dating marketplace right now, and this was the opposite, just like when Gary was the Golden Bachelor kissing multiple women, I don't think you would appreciate that as well. We'd like to think that we, at this stage in our lives, that we would date one person at a time. And again, this show doesn't lend itself to that. This lends itself to a broad range of dating multiple men, and for the Golden Bachelor, multiple women. And this is just one of the byproducts. And certainly without it, we wouldn't have much excitement. And hopefully Joan is having a good time, but certainly she's keeping her heart close to her vest, I suspect. And we'll find out as the weeks go on. Now, she did have a solo date with Chuck, excuse me. They went to Disneyland, and she found out he was a fun guy. You know, it's interesting. I was briefly in a relationship with a woman where our second date was Disneyland. And I got to tell you, Disneyland is actually a fun place to go on a date. And let me tell you why. And what I think might have happened during this date with Joan that you don't get to see behind the curtains is one of the things is, well, I suspect this didn't happen for Joan, but at Disneyland, you're going to be stuck in rides, waiting in line. In many cases, when I had this date some years back, while we were in line, we chatted with one another. In fact, we probably spent 8 hours in line chatting because each ride was 1 minute long. And I just remembered that this was actually a fun environment to do something social, to do something fun, to do something, in our case, it was spontaneous. And certainly it put us in an environment where we were stuck with each other, in this case, for quite a bit of time. And I suspect Joan had much of the same type of reaction. Now, it turns out that Chuck also lost his second wife. And it was a very sudden experience. And while she lasted for 5 months after this sudden experience, Joan began talking about the loss of her husband. And I believe in this environment, they began bonding with one another. Now, the same thing happened with Gary, whatever the heck his name is, and Teresa. They actually bonded through their mutual trauma. This is very common in our current dating environment. Oftentimes it's not associated with health or death. It's associated with a traumatic divorce. I've noticed so many people bonding with one another in our current dating environment through bonding through their mutual pain of going through a divorce, those of us in midlife, or a significant breakup. In fact, I think you'll find that a lot of people in this stage haven't healed from their past relationships. And while I get a sense that in the case of Chuck, excuse me, and Joan, certainly I think enough time has passed that, well, I don't think you ever move on from the loss of a loved one. You can move through it. And I suspect that Joan and him are in a good place emotionally, which means he probably could be one of my front runners, but we'll find out in a moment if he's in my top 4 picks. Now, one of the things we have to address in midlife is the challenges of health issues as we age. Also, snoring was discussed amongst the men because they're sharing a room, which is very indicative. I've heard so many women say, I can't be with a man who snores. I happen to wear a snore guard. It's a mouth device. I did get tested for sleep apnea, and it turns out that about 10 minutes a night I do snore, give or take. Certainly these men are experiencing it, but they're also talking about the real issue of health concerns. I know in my own life, I have slight high blood pressure. I also have a congenital heart issue that goes back to, I learned about it 40 years ago, and my doctor told me it probably won't affect my life. But basically, one of the spark plugs, if your heart is a 12 spark plug engine, one of my spark plugs doesn't work properly. Could this affect me later on in life? Quite possibly. But these are the real issues we face. And so it's good that I hear Joan and the gentleman talking about this, because guess what? At midlife, it can be all the fantasy and romance, as we just discussed, excuse me, the Cinderella story that we're experiencing. I do believe that if you want to be an emotional grown-up at midlife, you have to talk about the real issues of health concerns. Okay, now I'm going to give you my predictions. I'm going to give you my top 4. But before I do, I want to address one thing one more time, and that this romantic environment that Joan finds herself in could create a false sense of intimacy, a false sense of intimacy. This is why it's so important that if you're out in the dating marketplace, unlike this curated event, you hyper focus on shared values. You hyper focus on a shared vision for life. You hyper focus on the capacity of whether or not you can blend lives together, and you hyper focus on emotional maturity. Now, why do I say hyper focus? Because many of you ladies are suckling on the fantasy that if we love each other, everything will magically work out, just like Gary and Teresa, or Jerry and Teresa, whatever the heck his name is. I always mix it up. They said, if we've got to choose a partner we can't live without. Well, guess what happened? They were unable to blend lives together. And I suspect there was more to it than just that. But these are serious conversations that Joan and whomever she picks better have well before, and not from the fantasy. And that's the real dilemma with this type of environment. It sounds all great and good in the beginning, but the reality is, can you blend lives together? That's something that has to be addressed sooner rather than later. Okay. Now, my top 4 picks is going to start with a man who I don't think he's going to make the top 4, but he's someone that caught my eye. There were actually 2 men that caught my eye right from the very first episode. And the first one was Jordan. I think he's a 61-year-old senior sales executive from Chicago. I don't know why. There was just something in his eyes that just caught my eye. And I certainly think that he might make the top 8 for sure. I know he's not in my top 4 pick, but he's going to make my top 8. Now, the second person that was in my top 2 from the first day, I'm going to share that with you in a moment, but I'm going to share my number 1 pick going forward. And this goes back to, is it Chuck or Chalk? Okay. The 60-year-old insurance executive out of Wichita, Kansas. First off, he's a Midwestern bred guy that probably, just like I guess Jordan is as well. But they say something about Midwestern men happen to be more heart-driven or more salt of the earth. Oh, by the way, men and women alike. So he's certainly in my top pick, mainly because they bonded through that early experience at Disneyland. And then secondly, they just seemed like a good fit together. They really looked good together. So I like that about the 2 of them. My second pick is Mark, the 57-year-old gentleman whose daughter was on the winner on The Bachelor, Kelsey Anderson. His name is Mark Anderson. He's my second pick. Now, he just seems like a really good guy. Now, because we know, or for some of us, we know of him from his previous experiences on The Bachelor. He just seemed like there's more familiarity with him. He's a good-looking man. Him and Joan look good together. He's a little bit younger, which might be a benefit to Joan. She might find that attractive. I also don't know if it might work against him that his daughter is the former bachelor or bachelorette from The Bachelor. But certainly, he was one of my top 2 picks after the first date or the first episode. So he's in the top running on my category. Now, number 3, you're going to find this a little surprising, but there's this gentleman named Guy Gansert, I believe. He's a 66-year-old emergency room doctor from Reno, California. Now, why did I pick him? First off, he's got, in my opinion, a bit of a player look to him, like a bad boy look to him. He seems like, of all the men, he looks like he could be the player and bad boy. And women are hyper attracted to the player bad boy type. Now, I suspect there's something behind the curtain with him that might suggest to me that he may not be the player bad boy, but he's got that look. He's got that energy. And given that he received the last rose on the second episode, I feel like there's some drama about him to unfold. But at the same time, I suspect Joan, being a class act that she is, most likely will determine if he's truly a bad boy or just a good guy with an edge. I like to think of myself as a good guy with an edge. So maybe my perception of guy at first is just what looks like on the outside. There might be a genuine heart on the inside. We don't know that yet, but we're going to find this out. And my last pick is Pascal, the 69-year-old salon owner from Chicago, another Midwestern guy. Now, he's French, so he's not from the Midwest, but why did I pick him? Well, let me tell you something. They showed next week's clip, and there seems to be a scene where they get kind of frisky with one another. He does a little dance for her. And in that moment, I thought to myself, Joan might be attracted to the suave, metrosexual aspects of this gentleman. And maybe he has an edge that's a little different for the rest of them. And I suspect she might choose him in her top 8, maybe even her top 4. I forget how it ferrets out towards the end. So just to recap, I think Jordan, I liked him, but I don't think he's going to make the top 4. Maybe he will. Certainly, I think Chuck will. I keep messing that up. I believe Mark Anderson is going to be in that top 8, top 4. I also think Guy, what looks like a player, but maybe he's a good guy underneath it all. And probably the salon or Pascal is going to make it to the final 4. We'll have to see what happens over the next 4 weeks. I'd love to hear your thoughts about these gentlemen. Post a comment below on who you think your top 4 picks are. Do you think I'm right? Do you think I'm in the ballpark? We'll have to see over the next few weeks, excuse me. I will do a wrap-up episode after the Golden Bachelorette ends and recap. Hopefully Joan will watch this as well. I'm going to send this video to her. By the way, she and I have connected through social media. She's been very generous, very kind. I hope she appreciates this video as well. I'm going to be sending this to her. And I'm looking forward to her pick in a few weeks, and I hope some of you feel the same. Now, let me just say this. I know many of you think, reality TV is a joke. And to some degree, let's just face it, it's entertainment. But what I think is the important lesson in all of this is that life or midlife love is absolutely possible. I know so many people who have met in their 60s and have gotten married. This might be their second or third go around. So I'm here to be a big proponent that we all hold a space of hope in midlife, because guess what? It is absolutely possible to find love. And I think Joan might find love in this program as well. Is this sinking in? I'd like to hear your thoughts. Post a comment below. If you found value in this video, please hit that like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of new videos. Also, if you want to connect with me directly, there's links below to schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. There's a link to join my group called Midlife Love Mastery below. There's links to follow me on Instagram. There's even a link to get my dating vows and to join my mailing list, and also to become a member here on YouTube. All right, those who know my live format, it's time for Q&A. If you have a question, there's a little chat box in the corner. Write the word question, then post the question thereafter. Or you can purchase a super sticker, super chat. All of the monies from the super sticker, super chat goes to a scholarship fund in the name of my son, Connor Asley. That's my son right there. He's my son who passed away over 6 years ago. And in his honor, we donate to causes like the Hoffman Process Insight Institute and scholarships to coaching as well. And our goal tonight for donations is $50. So I'd appreciate some love. If 25 of you donated $2, we'd get to our goal. And if anyone wants to join the hot seat and talk to me directly, we just post a link to join the hot seat as well. All right, let's see what comments. Karen says, Mark has very kind eyes and seems great. Hope she picks him. The ER doctor also seems kind. I will see if he's kind. Again, he seems like maybe he's got a bit of an edge. Could it be a player edge, or could it be that he's a good guy? Victoria says, Pascal is a pain in the butt. He's too much. Well, I don't think he's going to make it to the final. In other words, she'll marry him. But there's some gut feeling just because of the way they showed it in the clip before. Goddess says, I was surprised Joan sent Jack home. You know, I didn't get a vibe from him one way or the other. So it's hard to say. So we'll see. I mean, you know, hey, listen, you got to roll the dice with some of those people because you don't really get to spend that much time with them. Okay, Gigi's in the house. Do you think Joan will take a test drive during the fantasy suites? You know what? I don't think she will. I think my guess is that she will not be physically intimate with any of the men. That's just my sense about her. Also, I think she wants to protect her reputation. I don't, you know, I think Jerry, whoever the Golden Bachelor, he already has, you know, he already screwed up big time. I mean, he's kind of messed up his reputation. I think Joan is going to learn from his mistakes and say, you know what, I'm not going to go down that road. Plus, I'd sadly say if she slept with more than one man, that just, I mean, if ever got out, that just probably wouldn't look good for the man she picked. I think he might lose interest if that happened. Okay, so that's just Karen says, I agree with your top 3 picks. Actually, I had 4 picks over there. Plus, I added Jordan in there. I think he's I think several of the guys are going to be in the top 8 or the top 6 for sure. Oh, Christina says, I wish I could watch it here in New Zealand. Oh, I'm sorry. On Hulu, you should be able to watch it. Beach Lover says they bring Jerry back for advice. Yeah, they have to do that. But again, his reputation is kind of weak right now. He had his 15 minutes of fame. He's going to get a few more minutes in a couple episodes in the future. But yes, I would agree, or at least he's going to come back. Beach Lover wants to remind us, is she going to test drive the car? I think she's going to wait till after the show is over. I suspect she's probably hooked up with him now, since I think filming is over. So we'll see what happens when they release the final episode. I just want to thank Jane for the $5 super sticker. Thank you for the love. I appreciate it. Betty says, during an interview, she said she did not take a test drive with the men. She said she did lots of talking with the men after the cameras are off. They went into their own rooms. Okay, I guess that speaks it. Tia says, the reality TV is a total joke, just acting for entertainment, as you said. Yes, but it draws attention to, I think, an underserved community, and that is the over 60 crowd, who still have plenty of years in front of them that can still find love. So I'm actually happy for the show, and it actually helps my business in the sense to remind everybody that we can find love. Okay, Karen says, I don't agree with your 4th pick. I believe you're talking about Pascal. I just think, I don't know, there's just something about, I saw him in the clips. I think there's kind of some drama that's intentional. So I'm just picking based on the fact that there was a sexy experience between him and Joan, and maybe that might be indicative of what's going to happen in the future. That girl says, I bet on Mark. He is way too nice and handsome. I think he's probably the most attractive man out of them all, and he seems like the nicest. So I would agree. A couple men, actually, I think every man that I picked on my list are probably the best looking men on the group. Now, I know some of you have said, why didn't you go do the Golden Bachelorette, be on there? You know what? I'd be the only, by the way, folks, I don't color my hair, okay? I just want you to know something. But I think I'd be the only one there that didn't have gray hair. I do have a little bit of gray here, okay? I think I would stand out too much. And I probably catch shit for it. The reason why I didn't even sign up for it, I do not want my life under a microscope. And certainly, given that I've lost a child, I just don't want that to be the overemphasis that might been discussed. So I want to keep that to myself. I do share my feelings publicly, but to do that in that kind of environment, to be under that kind of microscope, I just didn't want to find myself in that kind of circumstance. And that's how I felt about it. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on, if I should even apply to the new Golden Bachelor. Janie says, does Joan and others get paid for being on the show? I believe she does. I believe that she probably makes in excess of $100,000 for being on the show. And probably she probably has a PR person and an agency supporting her. So she makes several $100,000 from all of her efforts. That is my guess. Don't you see Pascal as needy, way too complicated? I didn't say that he was the right pick for her. I'm just saying, I think of the men, it's probably going to come down to those. And again, it was just a gut feeling for a few of them. But I bet you, okay, let's see if I'm right that the winner is in my top 4 or 5. Because I said Jordan in there as well, but I didn't put him in my top 4. A lot of pressure to do the show. That girl Tatiana says, you would be awesome, but you go your way of finding yourself. You know what? It's interesting. I've been doing lately a lot of deep healing in the last few weeks over several different areas of my life. And all of a sudden, I'm getting calls from matchmakers. I've already had, out of the blue, 3 matchmakers have called me saying, hey, I think we have a perfect person for you. I have a dear friend who's been on the show. Have I had Julie Furman on the show? I need to bring her on. A matchmaker who's introduced me to someone who actually has followed a little bit of my work. Also, there's a local person here from Hinge that I'm going to meet with. So all of a sudden, out of the blue, it seems like I have like 5 or 6 prospects. Isn't that the way it works? When you're not doing anything, they all seem to come in front of you. And that seems to be what's happening for me over the last couple of days. Natty Crafts is in the house. Jonathan from my show is the winner, although you're too cool, Jonathan. Yes, I appreciate that. Jonathan was the pick that she had for Prom King. I believe he will make it to the top 8. I think for reasons that I'm not going to share publicly. I don't think he's going to make it to the final 4. Beach Lover says, yes, Julie Furman has been on your show. I've had folks, I got to tell you something. This isn't that I feel like I'm going through Alzheimer's. It's just I do so much content. I do so many things. I just lose track of all that I do. I'm actually now on the podcast circuit. I've done 4 podcasts for other people. I'm interviewing people for my show. So, but we have to bring Julie Furman back. Actually, Julie had me on her podcast this week. And that's when she introduced me to someone. Christina says, woo woo, how exciting. Folks, getting into an energetic state of flow is a big part of the self-love process when it comes to manifesting or attracting a life partner. You have to be in flow. I went through the last year of a lot of different emotional experiences, predominantly the ending of my most significant relationship. But in that experience, I was able to step into my power, step into trust, step into faith. And I believe when we get into flow energetically, just like when Michael Jordan was in the zone and he could just go basket, 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 I invite everybody to get into their own flow or zone, as they call it. to being a manifester for what you desire out in the world. All right, do we have any other questions? If we don't have a couple questions coming in, we're going to do a short video today. You know what? I think this will be a great place to wrap up for today. Did you find value in this conversation? Oh, wait, that girl just posted something. What if we scheduled a horror Halloween nights and got too scary to go? I said, I can't comprehend it, he said. Okay, we'll see about doing a Halloween edition all dressed up. All right, folks, we're going to wrap up this video. Before we wrap up this video, I'd like to hear your thoughts on the Golden Bachelorette. Post a comment below. I do my best to read them all in the first 24 hours. As always, if you find value in my videos, please hit that like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of new videos. Also, if you want to connect with me directly, there's links below to schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. There's a link to join my group called Midlife Love Mastery. There's a link to get all my free gifts. Follow me on my website. Follow me on Instagram as well, all listed below. All right, I'm going to wrap up this video as I always do. First off, give myself a big, gigantic Jonathan Merrick of self-love. I'm going to reach into the camera and give you a hug of love if that's okay. I'm going to ask you to turn to someone, a pet, a teddy bear, a pillow. Give it or them a hug of love because hugs are a great source of love. And let's face it, we could all use more love in our lives. I want to thank Janie for donating tonight. I also want to thank Karen and Joe Daisy and Beach Lover and Tatiana and Elena and Marilyn. Did I say that girl? Tatiana, Christiana, Gigi, Goddess, Janie X. Janie X again donated. KNBC, Christina, everyone, big hugs. Thanks for the love. Wishing you all a super duper wonderful evening. Be well. Thanks. Bye-bye.